The Paleheart has given us a lot of weapons over the past few weeks. Some of them have been standout S-tier weapons. Today though, we're going to be looking at a new hand cannon called Bold Index. This is a Stasis heavy burst hand cannon, making it one of the few heavy burst hand cannons that we even have in the game. Now this is a very popular archetype, especially with things like Lucky Pants. Look no further than Warden's Law. So many people use that hand cannon, and that's because of its burst fire nature, literally shooting one shot after another. And for something like Lucky Pants, this allows you to increase those stacks of that damage buff very quickly. Today though, we're going to be looking at Bold Index, breaking down its perks, making direct comparisons between it and Warden's Law, and then going over the unique synergies that this weapon has, especially with our artifact mods. Now starting off with our perks. In our third column, we have Attrition Orbs, Strategist, Air Trigger, To the Pain, Headstone, Loose Change, and Rapid Hit. Don't worry guys, we're going to be breaking down some of these new perks in just a moment. In our fourth column, we have Demolitionist, Desperate Measures, Dragonfly, Moving Targets, Collective Action, Golden Tricorn, and Eye of the Storm. Now we have a couple of new perks in this weapon in our third column. We have Air Trigger, which increases ammo reserves, and when airborne, accuracy and reload speed are increased, but target acquisition is decreased. Now this is mainly a perk people are most likely going to try to use inside of PvP, but let me just say, folks hate double-edged perks, and we especially hate things that hurt target acquisition. Now in terms of the increase in ammo reserves, this doesn't really matter for Bold Index because it's a primary weapon, and therefore it has unlimited ammo. And no, it doesn't increase our magazine size. Now our reload speed is increased quite a bit though. For instance, at base, we're able to get a reload in 126 frames, but with Air Trigger procced, it drops it to 69 frames. The problem is, well, you have to be airborne to trigger this. Now, as for our target acquisition, this is more of a subjective thing. Let me just say though, guys, and I don't know how y'all feel about this, anytime I see a perk that's like, hey, we're gonna affect your target acquisition, I immediately put that perk in like F tier. We just don't like anything that hurts target acquisition, especially for PvP. Now for PvE, this may be something you can get away with, but at the same time, the only benefits you're gonna see here are benefits while you were in the air. It's not something many people are gonna be doing in in-game content, especially Grandmaster Nightfalls. Now as for the enhanced version of this perk, this simply just increases our reserves further, which again doesn't really do much here on Bold Index. Now we also have the perk To the Pain. This is another new perk which reads that while the weapon is equipped, taking damage increases handling and aim assist until the weapon is stowed. Taking more damage increases the effect. Now this perk is more for PvP, but this stacks up to 10 times and only goes away when you stow the weapon, so you can carry over its benefits from gunfight to gunfight, as long as you don't stow the weapon or you don't die. Now in terms of handling, at base, Bold Index takes 14 frames to ADS, and with To the Pain times 10, it takes 9 frames to ADS. Now in terms of aim assist, we're still testing that out. We don't have the exact numbers yet, but the enhanced version of this perk also didn't seem to give you substantial benefits over base. For instance, on a Ritual SMG, it took 1 less frame at max stacks to aim down sights. Now let's start with that third column real quick. First up, one of the biggest complaints with these heavy burst hand cannons is that the reload speed is a bit slow. Bold Index runs into that same issue. Now of course you can remedy this with things like Rapid Hit. Now if you pair this weapon with Prismatic, you can also take advantage of Loose Change, which is a decent option when it comes to reload bumping, as Prismatic has access to a plethora of elemental debuff options. But what really makes this gun special is that we have access to Headstone in that third column. Now Headstone has always been a good perk, but this one is a really unique case because it is present in that third column. Essentially though, precision final blows spawn a stasis crystal at the victim's location. Now with both Prismatic and our newly introduced stasis rework, Headstone has become an even more powerful perk than it already was. Shatter damage was recently doubled in PvE, base shatter damage from 200 to 400 damage with the release of the final shape. Now testing the actual shatter damage of a stasis crystal at Carl, it was dealing 8,477 damage. You compare it with things like Facet of Ruin and Whisper of Fissures, making your shatters larger and do more damage. These perform the exact same and bring the damage up to 9,654. It can trigger Stylist Executioner if you're on a Prismatic Hunter, and much more. In terms of the enhanced version of Headstone, this is just giving us +5 stability, so nothing really major here. But the perk itself, guys, has always been good, and this season with the artifact mods, even better. Now for our fourth column, we have a lot of strong options here as well. First up, we have Dragonfly. Precision kills create an elemental damage explosion. Now the enhanced version of Dragonfly just gives us +5 reload speed, but this is really interesting. You essentially have our first dark sharpness weapon that can roll with Dragonfly. Now, this is of course a pretty good perk. AoE damage is something we appreciate on a lot of different weapons. Now, the question that we had to ask, how does this work with Headstone? Sounds pretty unique. You've got a weapon here that upon landing a precision kill can not only proc Headstone and spawn in stasis crystals, but it can also proc Dragonfly and grant yourself that AoE damage. We tested it out, guys, and unfortunately, the Dragonfly explosion doesn't break the crystals from Headstone, which is such a bummer. Now, let me just say it is still a fun combo, but it's not working the way I had hoped. I had hoped that you would spawn in the stasis crystal and the AoE explosion damage from Dragonfly would then shatter that crystal, creating an even bigger explosion, but that's not the case here. Now, in terms of other damage perks, you've got Desperate Measures, which was introduced to us in Into the Light. Again, weapon final blows grant bonus damage, and melee and grenade final blows grant a larger damage bonus that can stack. This is a 10% damage bonus at 1 stack, with a grenade or melee giving you 2 stacks for a 20% damage bonus, and then another grenade or melee kill giving you 3 stacks at a 30% damage bonus. Now, there is an enhanced version of this perk, which cranks up our timer to 8 seconds over the base of 7. I think the biggest benefits about Desperate Measures is that the timer can be refreshed on your weapons, grenade, or melee kills. This means that after getting that 30% damage bonus, you can keep it up indefinitely, as long as you have enemies to kill. Now, our other damage options here include Golden Tricorn, which of course is very potent. This gives you a 15% increase in damage for 7 seconds, simply by getting a weapon kill. From that point, if you land an element matching ability kill, you'll gain a 50% damage bonus, which lasts for 10 seconds. Now, for the enhanced version, this is going to increase the timer for that ×1 stack to 8 seconds when it's refreshed. Now, one thing to note about Golden Tricorn is right now it's currently bugged, and you need to have your super matching instead of your abilities matching, more specifically when you're using the prismatic subclass. Now, unlike Desperate Measures, weapon kills alone will not refresh this 50% damage buff. The last perk I want to recommend is of course Demolitionist. I know it's not a damage perk, but it's still a great one. It gives us 10% grenade ability energy back every kill, and of course reloads our weapon when we use our grenade, with the enhanced version giving us 11% grenade ability energy back. This is a great perk with Headstone, as kills from Headstone can proc Demolitionist even more. Now, looking over at our origin traits, the Pale Heart weapons all come with the origin trait called Dealer's Choice. This reads that final blows with this weapon grant a small amount of super energy. Equipping multiple weapons from the Pale Heart increases this effect. Now, this effect is no joke, and the more weapons with the trait that you equip, the stronger it gets. With 1 weapon equipped, we estimate around 1% super energy comes back per kill. 2 weapons, it's 2.5%, and 3 weapons, it's around 4%. Granted, most people are not going to be rocking 3 weapons, as we want to rock an exotic. Luckily though, Dealer's Choice has some interesting interactions. Similar to how conditional finality counts towards the harmonic resonance trait in Root of Nightmares, we have some exotics that do the same for Dealer's Choice. And guys, this is very good. You've got Kavastov, Still Hunt, Ace of Spades, and Microcosm. All of these will count towards Dealer's Choice. So you can utilize these exotics with these other weapons with Dealer's Choice and still get your super back very quickly. And this is especially beneficial for weapons like Microcosm, which by the way shreds subjugators. But its entire identity is very much tied to you popping your super and then taking advantage of that damage buff, something of which weapons with Dealer's Choice paired with this will benefit you even further. By the way, if you haven't checked out our guide on any of those weapons, you can check out the cards here on the screen or in the description below. Now, what is the Godroll for bold endings? There's 2 routes you can go. You can either go Headstone in a damage dealing perk. Desperate Measures is a pretty easy one to proc and keep up, or you can go Desperate Measures in Demolitionist. And I really like this one a lot. No, it doesn't necessarily increase the damage of the weapon itself, but Demolitionist with Headstone has some great synergy for recouping back your grenade abilities. And you can take this combination even further. If you're on Stasis, use things like Whisper of Shards, which will grant 500% additional base grenade regeneration for 6 seconds upon destroying a Stasis crystal, something of which applies here. Now, there's actually quite a lot you can build into with Stasis right now, but that's for another video. Trust me, guys, we'll be going over the new fragments very soon. But to me, guys, that is the Godrolls. I know Rapid Hit exists in that 3rd column, but Headstone is the clear winner for me, which takes us to our artifact mods. This is going to allow your weapon to pop even more. First up, we have Creeping Chill. This is located in the 3rd column of the artifact, and this causes enemies that are either slowed or frozen to explode with stasis energy and slow enemies around them. Now, this effect requires that the target is killed with a stasis weapon, which of course bold endings is. Additionally, Headstone freezes any targets that are close to the crystals when it forms. allowing it to take full advantage of this mod simply for killing enemies. We also have the mod Winning Hand, which causes enemies that are killed by weapons with the Dealer's Choice trait to explode. Now, this explosion deals solar damage, and having multiple Dealer's Choice weapons that are equipped increases the effect of the explosion. Finally, we have Overcharged Armory, which causes all Dealer's Choice weapons to be permanently overcharged in activities that have overcharged weapons. Now, remember that overcharged weapons grant a passive 25% damage buff to those weapons, which is incredibly potent. Now, for those wondering, how does this feel in PvP? Guys, personally for me, and look, this applies to Warden's Law and to Bold Endings, I just dislike this archetype inside of PvP. It just doesn't feel good. Now, I will say it does feel a little bit better than Warden's Law, but man, you gotta ask yourself, guys, why would you ever use this over a 120? So for my PvP players, I would just choose something else. Overall, guys, Bold Endings is a very unique weapon, being one of very few hand cannons in its archetype outside of Warden's Law and the new Mahi's HC4. Now, it's not going to be as strong as Warden's Law. Warden's Law is just the king when it comes to Lucky Pants and getting those stacks and working those damage buffs up. It just has too many good things going for it. I mean, when you have combinations like 4 times the charm and Vorpal Weapon on a primary, it's going to be hard to beat that. At the same time, I don't want you to look at Bold Endings as a weapon that should compete against Warden's Law. Instead, dip into that Stasis synergy. Take advantage of these artifact mods. And dude, if Bungie ever makes a change where Dragonfly and the explosion to somehow shatter that Stasis crystal that Headstone spawns, fellas, this hand cannon will be one of the most unique hand cannons in the game. But even outside of that, guys, I really like this weapon. I think it's going to serve you well. And whether it's a damage perk with Headstone, Dragonfly with Headstone, or even an ability regeneration powerhouse like Demolitionist and Headstone together, Bold Endings is definitely a hand cannon worth using. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.